Hello and welcome to the Food Freedom Podcast. This is a podcast to help you find peace with food and to overcome disordered eating. And I'm Harriet Frew, aka the Food Freedom Coach, and I'm really excited to share with you all kinds of stories, tips, information and guest interviews in helping you on your journey in finding peace with food. So thank you so much for listening today. Now today I have another guest and I'm really excited to be speaking to Rose White. Now Rose is a health and nutrition coach and she is someone who I've met on Instagram and has become a really good friend. I love Rose a lot. Now, Rose has so much wisdom and inspiration to share with you. She talks today about her journey in recovery from anorexia nervosa and how she's gone on to work in supporting people today with their kind of health and well-being. And Rose has a really exciting project which she has recently set up with her brother James in the anti-diet world. So stay tuned to hear all about that. Anyway, over to the interview. Hi there, Rose. Great to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, so Rose, can you tell me a bit more about who you are and what you do?
I certainly can. I'm Rose. First and foremost, I am mum to 3 children. Well, they're getting ever bigger. I think 2 of them one's bigger than me for sure, and the other is chasing me now. Mum to 3 and a very hairy dog called Rufus. And I am a health and nutrition coach specialising in intuitive eating. And I'm also the co-founder of Reframe Club, which is my latest baby. So yes, that's me.
Okay. And how have you been sort of coping with the lockdown? How's that all been going for you?
Lockdown. I think do you know what? I had a conversation with my sister the other day and she said, poke me with a fork, I'm done. And I thought that would actually encapsulate how I feel about lockdown at this point in time. It's been, I think at this stage, I'm like, the beginning, it was lovely to have that break from all of those small life admin pebbles. I think what it did was it threw a light on the fact that we do so much, we fill so much of our time, we're so productive or feel the need to be productive all the time. So it was lovely to have, that kind of respite, as it were. But, by this stage, I think my children are chomping at the bit to get back to school and see their friends and all of those things. So it's been a real roller coaster, I think, the lockdown. And I don't know about you, Harriet, but I very much sensed, especially through conversations I've had with followers on Instagram and how they've responded to my stories and those sorts of things, is that there's a real kind of collective response. It seems to be that we all kind of like dip at a similar time. There are these rhythms to lockdown, I found. But I think undoubtedly the biggest challenge for me was the homeschooling with 3 children and work juggle. That was really interesting. And I think the only way as a family we made that work was twofold. One was ensuring that I remembered that their love of education, their love of learning is much harder to reinstate or get back than me creating a battleground over which worksheets got done. So we approached it in a more informal way than perhaps other families did. That's what worked for us. Some days we did this worksheet, other days we baked cake and grew something in the garden instead. And I didn't want to fall foul of the productive lockdown. I saw a lot of that on social media. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to use this time to come out of lockdown a different person, and I'm sure for lots of people it was an opportunity to do a lot of self-work or build a shed or dig a swimming pool, whatever people chose to do in lockdown. But I think for us as a family, we used it as an opportunity instead to actually reassess a lot of those shoulds, the feeling of needing to be productive and do a lot of the time, and embrace just being a bit more present and letting some of that stuff go. So my house has been very messy for about 3 months. It does get tidied, but it's, but realizing that in order for us to function as a family and do the things we do and be able to do them well, I had to not be getting myself het up that the household wasn't always the show home. And so I think I've definitely come away with lessons from it. And I think I've probably come away having grown from the experience for sure.
That's good to hear. And it sounds like you've taken quite a wise approach, I think, because of, I've been the same as well, sort of at home with my three children and my husband also working at home. And I think, yeah, just kind of like lowering the standards massively
Yeah.
and, going with the flow. It's been the way to survive it, really. And I'm so with you, actually, that I think it's a real truth that it's really hard for someone to get back their love of learning, isn't it? I think, that's something we really want to keep for our children. So, yeah, so definitely, I think go on.
Sorry, I was just going to share a tiny anecdote that my teenage son, he's almost 14. He's impossible to get out of bed. He grunts in your general direction and you can barely, you have to remind him that the shower exists. He is at that stage. And we went for a walk the other day and I said to him, "Oh, Zach, what do you think what's the lesson you'll take away from lockdown?" And his answer came so left field, but I think it was such truth. He said, "I'll cherish my education." And I thought, wow, that's amazing. I'm so glad you do, because he's missed his friends and he's missed the structure and he's missed that, what he got from school. But I also think it's a measure of probably my inadequacy as a homeschool tutor. I'm not sure that any of my children will ask to be homeschooled again after lessons with mummy. Yeah.
It's a challenge though, isn't it? But no, that's wonderful to hear, isn't it, actually? And I think it just really shows, actually, sometimes I think that when we take a step back and allow someone to be, it allows them to step forward, maybe, doesn't it? When we're not forcing something.
Absolutely. They find their own way as well. I think that's really important. It's giving them space to explore how, they learn best. Because that's the other thing at school. It's very formulaic, isn't it? And it's, but every child learns in a different way. And actually lockdown and being at home gives them an opportunity to explore that. They can be more hands-on. They can be cooking. They can be helping with tasks and, experiencing learning in different ways. That it's been positive in many ways.
Yeah, positive, but you're now ready for the pace of life to change a little bit again.
Yeah. Poke me with a fork, I'm done, Harriet, as my sister would say.
So, Rose, I know you've been on your own journey and overcoming issues with food in your body. So can you tell us a bit more about that journey?
Yeah, I can. So I have been 20 years recovered from an active eating disorder. I'm 40 now. It was a big birthday this year, but not so big. It happened in lockdown. Very quiet, understated birthday. But I am, like yourself, I'm the oldest of four. And I was brought up in what I would probably describe as quite an eccentric household. We were quite privileged, and both my parents worked very long hours and running their businesses. And I was a bit of a perfect storm, I think, for having an eating disorder. I was an overachiever from quite an early age. It'd be prize givings and head girl and prefects and all of that kind of thing. And I think as a child, because my parents weren't that present through no fault of their own, they weren't that present. I felt I learned that in order to be seen, I had to perform. So, if I was top of the class or I was in a school play, all of that stuff, I got seen, I got heard. My parents would be visible. They would congratulate me. They'd say, "Well done," and as one of four, you get a bit lost anyway in the mire. So I think that was, as a personality type, I was always a bit of a perfectionist, a bit of an overachiever. And it's a very long story, but to cut it as short as I can, my parents went into litigation with an oil company, and I was around 16 at the time. And my dad, after a very protracted and long case, which was lost, my dad had a full breakdown and he left us. We just couldn't cope. He removed himself from the family home. And because my parents had financially lost everything through that process, we got pulled from our schools and my life changed. It turned on a sixpence is the only way I can describe it. Overnight, I was pulled from, I was in private school. I was pulled and, put in the local comprehensive. When your name's Rosemary, that went, I remember my first day with the school register. That was interesting. I got the mick taken out of me that day. And I think as the eldest, and because I had those kind of overachieving personality traits, I assumed for myself a sense of responsibility, and that, it was never given to me, but I think I took it upon myself, and I started working outside of school hours at the weekends and so forth, so that I could help my mum. I remember paying for food shopping because my dad wasn't there anymore, so I think I assumed that kind of other second parent responsibility. So yeah, that was a bit of an upheaval, to say the least. And then at the same age, at 16, you're trying to navigate being a teenager. You're trying to navigate all the changes that are happening in your body. And I was a late developer. I didn't hit puberty until I was 14. And a lot of my friends had been through it, and they had boobs and they were snogging boys. And, I was way, way behind all of them. And I had a not very nice experience with a man, and I wasn't emotionally prepared for it. I had very low self-esteem, and I think marry that with that huge disruption and that sense of responsibility I'd taken upon myself, you've got that perfect storm for an eating disorder. And I think for me at that age, it wasn't so much about body image, rather it was an aspect of my life that I could control. And at a time when my body also, you're going through puberty, it feels very alien to you. So yeah, that was how it all began, to be honest.
Gosh, I mean, what an upheaval that must have just been for you and your family, having all that security and stability pulled from beneath your feet. And then also as well dealing with that trauma in that relationship amongst all that other change. I mean, I guess it's just really not surprising, is it, that you would have been vulnerable then with your mental health? It's just such a vulnerable age, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's an age, and I'm really aware of it now in my own children as well, because, two of them are at puberty stage, and seeing them navigate those changes in their body and trying to help them understand that it's, completely normal. But there's also this you're trying to find your own identity, aren't you? You're trying to see, begin to explore your own values and beliefs as a person that go outside of your parents and family construct and all of those things. So as you say, yeah, I think it's a really vulnerable time at the best of times.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So was there a turning point for you, Rose, in starting to overcome these issues?
Absolutely. And I remember it still all this time later, years and years later. So I must have been about 17, so 23 years ago. I still like it happened yesterday. And it was a trigger to wanting to recover. And I think that was a really key word for me. I was in the process of recovery. I was being put through a recovery program at the time, but I didn't want to recover at that stage. And I'd been staying with my aunt and uncle because they were giving me kind of respite from college and peers and school. It was, it was away, it was in the New Forest. It gave me kind of safe place to be. And my mum came down with my siblings. And my younger sister is 4 years younger than me. So she was about 13 at the time. And I'd been having a paddy that day. I remember I'd had a fierce paddy because they'd hidden the scales. I'd kicked off. I remember being such a cow. I'd been horrible. And I was sat on the end of the bed. I was sat on the bed. My sister was sat on the end of the bed. And no one else was around. And at the time, I had been abusing laxatives. And I remember her saying to me, Rose, if I've eaten too much pudding, should I take laxatives so I don't get fat? And as her big sister, and she looked up to me, and I love her more than air.
Yeah.
In that moment, it was like a veil had been lifted. It really, really was. And it was suddenly I could see beyond my eating disorder. I could see the impact beyond my eating disorder, and I could see everyone else beyond it. And I think that was a complete breakthrough. And I made the conscious decision in that moment to want to recover. And I went downstairs that night and I sat at the table, and I remember they'd ordered an Indian takeaway, which is that's a big, an Indian takeaway when you're in the midst of an active eating disorder that's a food that you really need to work eating. And I had some tandoori chicken, and that was it. That started me on the road to full recovery.
Mm. Well, that's so good to hear about that turning point. But I can so imagine like how heartbreaking it would have been to hear those words from your sister. Although I guess that really ended up being that significant trigger for change.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it did.
No, sure.
Absolutely.
I know as well in my own recovery, actually, because I used to suffer from bulimia. And I remember a really close friend of mine who also suffered from bulimia. And I remember her like locking herself in the toilet at a party and, you know, to make herself sick. And I know I remember for me, that was a little bit of a wake up call because it's something like sort of makes you step outside of yourself, doesn't it? And kind of realize, oh my goodness, that's what I'm doing and that's what she's doing. And that's so destructive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hugely. And I think, when you're in the midst of it, you can be, it is all about you and holding on to it and holding on to, that behavior that feels safe and helps you feel control. And it's really difficult to see beyond it. But as you say, the moment something or someone helps you see the impact outside, yeah, as you say, it's a significant turning point.
Yeah, sure. So what are the factors for you that really kind of helped you in your eating disorder recovery?
Well, firstly, I was very successfully treated as an outpatient at an eating disorders clinic, and that was over a year or so. And I had the support of my family, my mum, my siblings, my aunt, my aunt and uncle in particular are incredible. But I even remember my granddad. They all read books. They all had the books on what's it like to be, have anorexia and all these guides, and they all read them. And I remember feeling so supportive because they were all trying to understand what was going on inside my head. But I even remember my granddad reading it, bless him, and him taking me out. And he bought fish and chips, but he was really gentle with it. And I remember him saying, well, I remember when I was a kid, I had days where I didn't want to eat much and I just wanted to squeeze him. But yeah, I think that I was very, very fortunate in that there was a lot of love and there was a lot of support around me. And it allowed me to feel very safe and be very open. I had a lot of opportunity to be very open with my struggles and be able to say, I can't do this today, or I'm struggling with this today. And there was someone there who was willing to listen. And that was fundamental in my own recovery. And whether or not that person at the time was my counsellor or a nurse or someone within my family, but having someone that was able to hear me and validate me at that moment was very important to that journey. But I think the overall full recovery probably took 3 years. But as I say, I've been fully recovered for a couple of decades now.
Yeah, and that's wonderful to hear. And I think it just shows, doesn't it, the importance of having, if it's possible, supportive family and friends around, to be there with you on that journey. It is incredibly hard, I think, to do it in isolation, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think reaching out and accepting that people want to help you. They're there. There are services, there are individuals who want to help you on that journey. And yeah, I think accepting that help when it's offered is fundamental.
Sure. And what kind of treatment or therapy did you receive, through your counselling?
Well, I had talking therapy, cognitive behavioural therapy. We had family therapy, which was really important because I think we had to explore the dynamic that I had taken, on and how that played out as a family. That was very supportive. I worked with an eating disorders nurse who literally went through a re-education program with me, around normalizing food and exploring food. And, we would sit and look at what a normal lunch looked like and go through, the process of, right, okay, we're going to have a sandwich today and we're going to, eat the sandwich and all of those things. But I think, that along with bringing my own awareness, I did a lot of reading at the time. I read around the subject a lot at the time, and that was really supportive as well, to read other people's recovery journeys, because there was hope. Because to be perfectly honest, I didn't even really know what an eating disorder was when it was manifesting in my life. Yeah. I didn't know I had bulimia and anorexia. I didn't know it until it was labelled for me. I just felt that I had a way of controlling my anxiety. And, because it wasn't spoken about very much 20 years ago. No, it wasn't something we were educated about at school. It wasn't, I never remember having a PSHE lesson on it or it being talked about with my peers. I don't remember that at all. So I think, I had to go through a process of educating myself as well and understanding that I wasn't abnormal, that I was going on a journey that many, many individuals have been on. And that helped me accept the process, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So Rose, what was your journey to working and supporting others and setting up your businesses?
Well, I think I've always known deep down that I wanted to work in nutrition and health, and I wanted to do it from an anti-diet point of view. But it wasn't until, how many years ago now? 2017, so 3 years ago, that I had the opportunity to retrain. I'd worked in marketing and publishing prior to that. And I think that, and having my 3 children, and that watching them grow up in this world where diet culture is so insidious, and what they began to come home from school saying, and all of those things, I qualified. And then I discovered, whilst I was studying, I discovered intuitive eating as a framework. And I thought, this is incredible. This is what should be taught in schools to foster, a healthy relationship with food and our bodies. And I began to implement it for myself. And I then, after I graduated, I went on to do work with Laura Thomas's CPD with the London Centre for Intuitive Eating, with applying intuitive eating practice into practice. So I did that as a formal piece of training, and then that gave me the confidence to begin to apply that in my own work with clients. So yes, I think
that sounds
that's
fantastic.
how I ended up here.
And can you say a bit more about, so when you're working with a client as a health and nutrition coach, like how much are you focusing on the kind of food and how much are you focusing on the mindset side, or is it all kind of quite sort of integrated together?
It is an integrated journey because they are so interrelated. And I think to put it in a nutshell, I support individuals to embed kind of health promoting behaviors into their life. But health, when I talk about health, I'm not just talking about what they eat and how they move. We're talking about how they manage stress and anxiety and sleep and the biosocial, psycho-environmental model of health.
Yeah.
And so we always start the journey with exploring how their relationship with food. So what does that look like? So I don't work with active eating disorders. That's beyond my scope of practice and would require an onward referral to someone like yourself. But quite often individuals come to me and they've got a history of trying every diet under the sun. They've been on every juice plan. They've been on every, because they have bought into the idea that they have to look a certain way, or they've got to chase this certain weight, and they end up having a complicated relationship with food. They're often really restricting. I think the most common thing I see is people restricting all day and then kind of face planting, the bread bin later in the day because they are, hungry. So they've got caught in this restrict and binge eating cycle. So unpicking that and helping them understand the link between the physiological, so balancing our blood sugar, making sure we're eating on regular intervals, making sure we're eating food that is balanced and gives us energy and helps us feel well, and how not eating impacts their stress and feelings of anxiety in the body. So exploring how those things and helping them see that those things are dependent on each other. So when we're eating well, we've got the energy to go about and live our lives the way we want to lead it. We can concentrate at work. We feel better about the job we're doing, which means, it's all, it's a circle, and it's helping people see that highly interrelated circle between the relationship we have with food, how we eat, and how that then plays out and how we feel. So yeah, did that make any sense at all there, Harriet?
Yeah. No, it sounds brilliant actually. It's very holistic, as it should be, really, because I think it's so true, isn't it? We often immediately think of health and think about what you're eating, how much you're moving, and kind of forget that bigger picture. And it's so important to focus on all those aspects.
Yes,
So that sounds
absolutely.
really, really great. And exciting as well that you've launched an online non-diet platform recently. So yeah, tell us more about that.
Well, yes, Reframe Club. So my brother James, who is a personal trainer and he owns outdoor gyms, he's always been a bit of a non-conformist in the health and wellness space as well. And they don't do mirrors, they don't do lycra, they want people to feel strong and understand that their bodies are an incredible vehicle for us to go about living the life we lead. But he has also been on his own body image journey. And, as I remember him being 13, 14, wearing 5 t-shirts because he thought he was too thin. So love him, sweating like because so he's had his own body dysmorphia journey. And I think both of us had seen clients come to us with very negative body images, body dysmorphia, especially in his world of, lots of people in the bodybuilding and fitspo world. And these very kind of dichotomous, guilt-driven relationships with food. And what we wanted to do was provide a very accessible and affordable means of people benefiting from the nutrition support and coaching that we do with clients one-to-one, because we aren't the experts on people's bodies, they are, and that coaching part is really important. We're not here to say this is the way you should eat, this is what, how you should eat, this is how you should move your body. We wanted to give people the tools to empower themselves to see what that looks like for them. And along with that, unpick a lot of that insidious diet culture talk, help people explore the food rules they may have inherited and taken on with them, and help them understand that they can have a great relationship with their bodies and their food and with food. So it's not driven by aesthetic or body size. So we are weight inclusive. We wanted it to be a really safe space for exploring intuitive eating, intuitive movement, what that looks like, providing people with the resources to, as we would in a one-to-one environment, to go on that journey and see what that looks like for them, and to build those behaviors, those health promoting behaviors into their lives in a way that is sustainable and realistic. And at the end of that, come out feeling happier and healthier and with a more balanced approach to how they think about their bodies and the way they eat.
It sounds amazing, actually. And I think just really needed, because it is just very different, isn't it, from a lot of the kind of programs that are out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we wanted to do was take the traditional fitness platform and turn it on its head.
Yeah.
And say, no, there is a different way of doing it. So we provide these guided coaching programs that you can access anytime, and they offer support and information on finding a healthy weight without dieting, nutritional advice. So we unpick all the the nutrition nonsense, and I hop on there and do videos on busting why all the myths that we see peddled out on social media. We've got a whole library of workouts for people to do at home. So we've got like yoga, HIIT, boxing, kettlebells, because we wanted to be able to give people a way of exploring different forms of movement from the comfort of their own home. But we also have our very lovely and very relatable instructor Bex. There's no kind of white teeth and six pack and bikinis and talk of detox. We avoided that we don't talk about weight, we don't talk about calories, we don't talk about anything like that. And along with that, the mindset stuff, because as you say, that's part of that bigger picture, learning how you can manage your stress, learning how to improve your sleep, learning to explore things like what's hunger and fullness, what does that feel like in the body, how do I become aware what hunger feels like after I've spent years dieting, what does that feel like in my body, how do I understand what it is, the motivators that I have to make changes to feel well that aren't just chasing this number on the scale. What is it that's important to me? Why do I really want to be well? What is it that looks like for me? And guiding people through that process, as well as guiding them to explore things like emotional hunger and when that may occur, and the helpful tools that they can use to support themselves to begin to break some of that chain, those patterns. So yeah, as you say, it's very holistic. We look at health from every point of view and give people an opportunity to explore that in their own time through these guided coaching programs, which are mainly videos We also have a lovely community space in there as well, because we wanted to bring all the voices. We noticed that none diet as an approach in health and wellness is there's a groundswell, there's a movement, there's more and more people talking about it, which is wonderful and very much needed. But no one had kind of collected all those voices together yet. And we wanted to give a platform for that. We wanted to give a platform to all those voices. And I always use the term gathering whispers. I want to gather enough whispers so that we have a roar to come up against the storm of diet culture. So yeah, we wanted to build a community that did that. So we interview lots of experts in loads of fields around holistic health. So experts in body acceptance, body positivity, listening skills, all the things that help hold us up and help us become more self-aware and go on this journey of developing a healthy relationship with food. So yes, it's everything in there. It's jam packed.
Yeah, it sounds incredible, Rose, actually. You know, what a fantastic resource. And obviously the community aspect as well is just really wonderful for people to be able to kind of connect on there and hear people's stories and read blogs, etc. So is there such a thing as like a typical client journey through the Reframe Club?
Well, there is and there isn't. So when you become a member, you have your own, what we call dashboard. So you can log on your phone, you can log on your desktop. And there are 3 guided main core programs called Your Body, Your Mind, and Your Nutrition. And within those are a series of guided videos, coaching videos, audios, resources for you to download, journal pages for you to work through, visualizations for you to listen to, guided meditations. But you get to choose where you start on that journey. And there's a little questionnaire that you go through at the beginning, which gives you a little bit of, brings your awareness to where you've been struggling most. But we believe it's your body and that's your rules. So we didn't want to push anyone down a particular path. Yeah. So you can log onto your dashboard and you can choose, okay, I'm going to go into your body today and I'm going to learn what intuitive movement is. And then I think I might have a go at that yoga balance video. And I'm going to see whether or not I like that. And then tomorrow you might go into the Your Nutrition space and begin to work through some of those lessons. And you can track your progress as you go. But we very much wanted it to be that you could dip into all 3, you can explore and work your way through in your own time and revisit it as many times as you like, because that's the thing with intuitive eating as a framework as well. I think you have to go back sometimes. You can make progress and you have to revisit and you have to think, oh, hold on, I'm just going to go back and have I lost sight of what it feels like to be hungry again? I think I might go back and listen to that audio again and spend a bit of time thinking about that. So we want to be able to give people that ongoing access to everything. And you are supported by regular coaching emails from James and I that are very specific to help support you get the most out of the hub, but also bring your awareness to some of those key learning points that may have been barriers to you making sustainable, healthy changes in the past. And we want to learn more about you. So we also encourage you to come over onto the community pages and react and interact to the interviews we're having and the blogs we're putting up there and all the stories that are being shared, because we want Reframe Club to become a safe place for people to share their experiences. And we're new, we're learning all the time. We love feedback. We're on Instagram and Facebook, so we're often sharing some of our resources on there for people to see, so they can see the kind of thing we have on the hub. And I'm always hanging out on Instagram. So if any of your listeners want to have a chat, they can find me on there. Always on Instagram. It's my nemesis. It's my time sucker, Instagram.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure so many people will, Rose, because I'm kind of thinking, I know for me a few years ago, I would have just been so excited to have found something like this, because I think it's brilliant. And the way that it's kind of focusing on health, from all those angles, and the way that you're really encouraging as well people to almost kind of learn to take care of themselves and kind of like, sort of develop that in quite an intuitive way rather than like following a prescriptive plan, which often, I guess, that doesn't really work for the long term, does it? Because when it's something from outside and it's a plan, we stay on it and then we're off it again. So yeah, it all sounds really, really fantastic. So yeah, I'm really excited for you and James, the Reframe Club.
Thank you. And on that point, you just made a really good point about finding, one of the first visualizations we encourage people to explore is one called Find Your Mojo. And it's visualization, a guided audio with me, walking you through, trying to see what does your future self want and look like. Because when you can tap into those intrinsic motivators, as you said, it's coming from within us. The motivation to make these changes are coming from within us rather than an external meal plan. We are far more likely to want to engage and carry on.
Yeah, so very true. So Rose, how do you work today to find a healthy balance with food and exercise in your life?
Well, I think there are two things that are really key for me. The first is not restricting at all and giving myself permission to eat all foods, like taking them off the pedestal. And we have a very food neutral household, as it were. And by doing that, by learning to do that as well, by learning to make food, neutral, and I may want an apple, I may want a cake, there's much for muchness. I can take it or leave it, and I think that's been really key for me. And balancing my blood sugar and understanding the importance of balancing blood sugar to how I feel and like how I can even regulate my emotions, because when we've got low blood sugar, I definitely suffer from being hangry. So yeah, those two things are really supportive for me.
So can you just say a little bit more actually for people that are listening about balancing blood sugar?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I often talk about, especially when people have been bedded into diets for a long time, they will come to me and they will have really big gaps between meals and snacks because they think they're being good. Or they will have not eaten, they'll skip breakfast because they think, I'm going out for lunch, so I'll skip a meal. And the result is they go on this, what we call the blood sugar roller coaster. The reality is your body likes your blood sugar to be released in a nice even kill throughout, oh, the wrong word, a nice even way throughout the day.
Yeah.
So, and when we don't eat and our blood sugar drops too low, obviously our body produces the stress hormone cortisol because it comes, knocking on the door saying, please release some sugar, we need it for ourselves. We begin to crave much higher sugar dense foods and we'll then eat them. And then we get a high of our blood sugar spikes. Our body panics, so it releases lots of insulin to mop up the excess sugar, and suddenly it drops down low again. And we're on this really up and down roller coaster that can leave us really, we feel like we've got brain fog, we're really tired, it's harder to regulate our emotions. And sometimes the physical manifestations of low blood sugar, like you feel a bit shaky and those kind of things, we begin to experience them, we think, as anxiety, and then that feeds that loop we spoke about earlier. So I always talk about putting stabilizers on the bike, because when you've been dieting for a long time or you've been restricting for a long time, it can be really difficult to just, people talk about the hunger and fullness part of intuitive eating, but that's one really small part and it's a very nuanced part. And actually, sometimes we have to go back and we have to put some structure around how we're eating, and so that our body can learn to trust that food is coming in regular waves again, and everything can settle back down. So I always encourage people to eat every 3 to 4 hours, leaving no more than 5 hours between the times they're eating, just to keep their blood sugar nice and balanced. So we've got a nice lot of energy coming in, and we can eat to help slow the release of sugar into the bloodstream. So we get a nice steady energy release. So we talk about balancing snacks. So when we balance snacks, we're looking for protein, healthful fats, and fiber, a combination of those three things. And in doing so, we allow our blood sugar the sugar to be released nice and in a nice steady stream into the bloodstream, which helps us keep those nice energy levels and help us feel fuller for longer between meals, so we don't get those big dips and end up eating in a way that feels very erratic or distressing in some cases. So when I talk about what does a balanced snack look like, it's things like some yogurt and some berries, hummus and some oatcakes. It might be some Nutella on toast. It could be peanut butter and a banana on toast. Those are a combination of those things. So we've got protein, fats, and fiber. So, it doesn't have to, cheese and an apple, a bit of cheese and apple, those kind of things. And that really helps support our blood sugar throughout the day.
That's beautifully explained, Rose, and thank you for going through that. I always want to kind of take that little recording and press play when I'm with and you said as well, there's a second thing as well that's very key for you in your finding a healthy balance with kind of food and health and exercise. And
yes. Yeah, a flexible approach to movement. 100%. I think, and I approach movement in the same way I approach food, intuitively. I don't follow a workout routine. I don't prescribe to any particular form of movement. And I make choices around those that benefit me and motivate me on the time. I love moving my body. Exercise does help me feel well, and I like to feel strong and be outside, and it does serve me. But there are days when I just need headspace, especially in lockdown, with 3 kids. There's 5 of us in this house. So I need to feel free, and I need to be outside. I need to feel the sunshine on my face. So I might go for a run. Other days I'll feel really tense. I'm someone who holds tension in my shoulders and my jaw. And I can literally, by the end of the day, my shoulders around my earlobes, and I'm grinding my teeth. So I'll go and hit the yoga mat for half an hour. And some days I think I'm Shiva and I will do kettlebells. I think I can take on the world. But the other thing I always extol, and I always talk about, and we talk about it at Reframe Club, and it's part of the coaching, and I talk about it with my clients, is the importance of recovery. Because I think we under recover because of this. We're meant to feel productive all the time, but also we have this thing around exercise where we feel we must be doing it, and it's part of this language we have around earning and burning our food, and we've got to be busy, and it's not working unless we're sweating, and it's hard, and all of those things. Actually, no. Stress, exercise is a stressor on the body, and it's really important that we make time to recover, because recovery is where the magic happens. Recovery is when we rest, we heal, and our body can build muscle and repair itself and do all that wonderful stuff. But also, it's in those moments where we are resting, where we're not filling our lives with movement or anything else for that matter. We're not filling our lives with to-do lists or, hoovering. I think as women, we struggle with this quite a bit, to be honest, Harriet. I think quite often we can sit down with a cup of tea and then suddenly we see the washing basket out the corner of our eyes and we think, oh, I'll just go do that. So sitting still is difficult.
Yeah.
But that's also when we can be our most creative, and when our brains do their problem solving and help us explore that deeper unconscious stuff. So yeah, I always talk about the importance of recovery, rest.
A lot of wisdom there, Rose. So what do you think as well we can do to support young people growing up to have a better relationship with food and their bodies?
A lot, and I still think there is a lot of work to do. I've worked with some schools in the past doing training with teachers on what it is to raise intuitive eating, what it is to encourage a body neutral and food neutral climate for children within schools and within our homes. I love the work of Ellen Satter. She's a pediatric dietitian. She wrote Child of Mine, which is an incredible book. And she always talks about the division of responsibility. And this is something I've applied with my own children. And I work with clients to help implement with their own families. And the division of responsibility outlines how as parents, we are responsible for the what, where, and when, but our children are responsible for the how and the how much they eat. And that's a real kind of shift for a lot of parents, because we may have inherited beliefs around the clean plate club, for example. You mustn't leave anything on your plate. And it's recognizing that children are naturally intuitive eaters. A child will turn its head away from the bottle or the breast, a baby when they're full, or you remember yourself, Harriet, when you're weaning your babies and they just clamp their mouth shut. And you are not getting any more pureed squash in my mouth. I am done. Because they're attuned to being full. And also, if you gave a child, a selection of foods in front of them and gave them a plate, they would intuitively put a balanced plate of food together. It's only over time and the language we use around food where we sort of begin to undo that a bit, when we begin to put food into categories, when we begin to say, I hear it all the time at children's parties, eat your sandwich first, then you can have the biscuit. And we end up with that language, putting foods into these completely unconsciously most of the time into these categories, and the children feel that vegetables are the thing that has to be endured. I have got to get through my carrots if I'm going to get to my yogurt at the end, and so I think in my own household we try and talk about food and our body and our bodies for that matter very neutrally. So I think bringing awareness to your own language around food and trying to begin to explore some of the inherited beliefs or behaviors we may have as parents around food that we can be unwittingly passing on. And I think that's probably the first place I'd encourage everybody to start. And I think the other part of that is my children see me eating a really wide variety of foods without any kind of narrative with it. There's no just they'll see me eat a big slice of cake or biscuits, and they'll see me eat an apple, and it's not justifying or commenting on that. It's just part of the bigger, wider, broader, varied diet that we eat as a family.
Yeah, sure. No, I think it's so true, isn't it? I think as well your point about us kind of being much more aware of all these beliefs and things that we carry, because I think often it's so unconscious, isn't it? And in a way these things are coming out of our mouths, like kind of clean your plate or eat your vegetables first, and because they've been so ingrained in us and we perhaps just haven't questioned them. And I so agree, doing the work on yourself and then being able to be kind of like a role model in terms of being very food neutral and embracing all the foods without any kind of commentary. That's just so valuable for children to see.
Massively. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Rose, so 3 final quick fire questions. So what would be your last supper 3-course meal?
You're going to laugh, okay? Because I tested this one with my sister and she was like, what? But it's true. My starter would be, this isn't so weird, but my starter would be squid with like black pepper, crispy. I just love that. I love squid. My main course would be a French baguette with slightly salted butter, really mature cheddar cheese, and a cup of tea. I don't even know if that counts as a main meal, but it is. If someone said to me, what food could you eat every day for the rest of time? I think it would be that one. If I had to go on a desert island and only choose that, I love, mature cheddar. In fact, I could eat it now. My sister was like, why wouldn't it be spaghetti bolognese? Because it's definitely that. And then I think dessert would be, I struggled with this one. I was torn between sticky toffee pudding with vanilla ice cream or a custard slice, because a custard slice takes me back to very happy childhood memories. But I think sticky toffee pudding pipped it at the post. So sticky toffee pudding for pudding.
Oh, sounds great. And do you have a favourite quote or mantra?
I thought about this one, and then actually I had a conversation with a client last night that changed my answer. Ooh. Because she came out with something that I think was very, very beautiful. And it was something she was using to help herself remember to carry out some of the actions we'd agreed and to reframe in her head as a place of self-care. And it was, this is present me taking care of future me. And I thought that's such a lovely and very beautiful way of helping give ourselves permission, because I think we struggle with permission, especially as women where we're the primary caregivers often, to say to ourselves in that moment where we're sat down with that cup of tea and we catch the washing basket in the corner of our eyes, to say, no, this is present me taking care of future me. So I wanted to share that one today because I thought that was a very lovely way of helping give ourselves permission to take these acts and act on these acts of what are self-care and from a place of self-care.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And tell us something about you that may surprise us.
Okay. I have...
I know you're quite open, aren't you, actually?
I'm a very open person. What would surprise you? More likely that I auditioned for Channel 4 to ride a red London bus through Europe with a group of strangers. And in order to get on the telly programme, I decided it was a really good idea during the auditions to try and tango with one of the producers. It didn't work. I never got on the red London bus. However, they did use my audition for the clip for the Channel 4 trailer of the entire programme. And everyone at work saw it. And I was known as the Tango Girl after that for a very long time. So yes, that's something I bet no one knew about me.
Oh, that's brilliant. Gosh, just think that what a different direction your life could have gone in if you'd got on that bus.
I know. I could be on the telly. Who would have known? It might have been me. Holly Willoughby, who? It's Rose Wyatt. No,
thank you for sharing that, Rose. So finally, Rose, where can people find you?
Well, you can most definitely find me hanging out on Instagram. I am at Live a Well Life on Instagram. You can also find Reframe Club there at Reframe Club. I have a website, www.reframeclub.com. You can also find me at Live a Well Life. I am on Facebook, I am on Twitter. But if you want to be guaranteed to connect with me, just go to Instagram.
Almost 24-hour contact.
Yeah, I'm putting boundaries in place. I'm being good. I'm trying to put boundaries in place.
Yeah. Okay, that's fantastic, Rose. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today and for talking so openly and sort of sharing your wisdom. I know this is going to be, so many people are going to be listening to this and finding it really valuable. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me, Harriet. It's been a pleasure and a privilege.
So thank you so much to Rose again for coming on the podcast today. And do go and check out in the show notes all the links to Rose's website and also the Reframe Club. So if you want to find out more information. Okay, if you're not following me already, do seek me out on Instagram at the Food Freedom Coach. And for weekly blog articles straight to your inbox, do sign up on my website at foodfreedomcoach.co.uk. So thanks again for listening, and I look forward to sharing another podcast episode with you very soon.